What's up, guys? I'm back today. Wanted to come at you guys with some more UFC and MMA news, talking matchups that have been announced, talking Conor McGregor and Paul Hughes, talking about some UFC legends that got cut from the roster, and ragging on UFC 312 one more time because it is one of the worst cards in modern day UFC history in terms of pay-per-views. It's literally an Apex card. Like, I don't know what other way to put it. But let's get right into it. This just in. I saw this on Twitter. Let me know what you guys think. Pantoja versus Kara France rumored to co-headline UFC 314, and I got a good idea who I think the main event's going to be. We all kind of figured that Pantoja probably would be facing Kara France next if he wasn't going to go up and fight Merab Dvalishvili, which I don't think the UFC is too interested in giving Pantoja a champ matchup. They tried that with TJ Dillashaw back in the day against Mighty Mouse. Probably priced himself out. So the UFC is like, nah, you're going to defend against Kara France. I think Kara France is only on a one-fight win streak. So he will be getting a title shot coming off of only one win. But listen, man, it's not going to be any different. Pantoja's chin's way too good. He's not Steve Erceg, brother. He has a zombie chin. And he's going to come forward with reckless abandon. And he's probably going to take Kara France down and submit him. I think these guys fought in an exhibition match back in the day, and Pantoja ended up winning. As far as I know, Pantoja is 10-0 against the current top 10 of the flyweight division, and I don't think this is going to change. But the fact that this is going to be the co-headliner, rumored to be the co-headliner of UFC 314, I'm extremely excited. I think the card is going to be extremely stacked. Yeah, this is an exciting matchup because if there's anybody in the flyweight division that can clip and knock out Alexandre Pantoja, it would be Kara France. Kara France has the most power at flyweight. He just chinned Steve Erceg, who is the guy that went life and death with Pantoja. So there is something to be said about that. Pantoja arguably lost on the cards to Erceg, and then Kara France went out there and smoked him in a round and took his lunch money and stuffed him into a locker and knocked him out. But yeah, man, happy to see Pantoja building his legacy. Coming up on DJ's heels. He still has a ways to go before he passes DJ as the flyweight GOAT. I think he would need 6 or 7 title defenses modern day with the level of competition to pass up DJ, but this would be his 4th title defense if he defends. I'm excited, man. If 314 is what I think it's going to be, which I think it is, we're in for a banger of a card because let me tell you guys who that main event is rumored to be, which I've already talked about this on my stream. Bo Nickel kind of leaked that the main event of UFC 314 will be Ilia Topuria versus Volkanovski 2, the rematch. Do I want to see Volk fight Ilia Topuria again, coming off 2 KO losses in a year layoff? No, I do not. I wish he would have took on a Movsar Evloev or a Diego Lopez for a #1 contenders fight, but I get it. Volkanovski thinks he's the best. He was the pound-for-pound #1. He's like, you know what? With proper training, not coming off a KO loss, maybe I can step in there and beat Ilia and take my title back. But it's just such a hard matchup for Volk, you guys, because you have to look at the whole situation, right? Volkanovski is 36 years old. He's taken a year off, which he hasn't done in his entire MMA career as far as the UFC goes. And he's coming off of 2 knockout losses. Like I said, he's not going to be as confident as he once was, maybe. Maybe he doubts himself and his chin. He's also older than ever. He's going to be slower than ever. And I don't know, man. The over 35 curse is real. No one 155 pounds and below has won a belt 35 or younger. I think they're like 0-30 or something in title fights. 35 or older, I mean. Topuria is 28. He's in his absolute prime. He's already chinned Volk. I mean, Topuria is looking like a world beater. I mean, I think Islam versus him would be competitive because Topuria is just that dang good. The best boxing in the UFC, dangerous one-shot knockout power, underrated Greco-Roman wrestling, good submissions. He submitted Bryce Mitchell. Say what you want about Bryce Mitchell, but Bryce Mitchell is one of the best submission artists at featherweight right now. So, yeah, man, this is a huge mountain for Volk to climb. I can see Topuria being like a 3-1 or 4-1 favorite over Volk just because of the fact that he already beat him and Volk's coming off the layoff and stuff. But listen, man, Volkanovski, if he can be perfect for 25 minutes, has a chance to beat Topuria. I remember that first fight. If you watch it, Topuria was kind of getting pieced up. You look at his nose, Volk busted up his nose. Volk was doing a great job, but Ilia closed the distance, got him up against the fence, landed a 3-punch combo, and Volk went out cold. It literally just takes one shot, and I don't even think that it mattered too much that Volkanovski fakes Ilia on after coming off a KO loss to Islam 4 months later, because that shot that Topuria landed on Volk would KO any version of Volk. That was a clean shot to the chin. And Volkanovski's never been known to have the strongest chin. He's been dropped by Chad Mendez. He's been dropped by Max Holloway twice in their second fight, I believe. He's been KO'd twice now. So it's not like Volkanovski's had like a Marvin Vettori type chin, but I still think that shot that Topuria landed on him in their fight, on the first fight, would have knocked out any version of Volkanovski coming in, even if he didn't get KO'd by Islam 4 months prior. But man, listen, if it is the headliner of UFC 314, I know I said I didn't want to see this fight, but let's get it out the way. Let's give Volk the legend his shot. At the end of the day, it is his first loss at featherweight, was to Topuria. He was undefeated at featherweight, and yeah, I guess he does deserve a rematch. 5 title defenses, dominant reigning champion, dominated Erceg, dominated Korean Zombie, dominated Max Holloway, dominated Yair Rodriguez. He literally was running circles around the division, emoting on guys, and just looking so far ahead of the competition until the young guy, Ilia Topuria, who's one of the most well-rounded fighters we've ever seen, came and took his belt. I mean, like I said, it's not the most ideal matchup for Volkanovski, but at the end of the day, he wants to prove he's the best. I respect the hustle. I'm just worried for him, man, because I do think that Volkanovski is probably going to get chinned again because, man, Father Time is undefeated, guys. 36 years old, back-to-back KOs, a year off out the octagon. This usually doesn't end well. The young guy almost always wins these matchups. It's very rare that the old veteran coming off a knockout loss comes back and reclaims his belt. But if there is a guy that can do it, it is Volkanovski. If there's a fighter that can break the 36-year-old curse or 35-year-old curse in lower weight classes, it would 100% be Alexander Volkanovski, just because Bald Volk is built different, man. But either way, I'm excited for this matchup. If this is indeed on 314, which Bo Nickel pretty much confirmed it, Bo Nickel's league fight before, so I think we can expect Bo Nickel to be on UFC 314 as well. So Volkanovski, Topuria headliner, Bo Nickel versus, not Bo Nickel, Pantoja versus Kai Kara-France co-headliner, and then probably Bo Nickel on the main card because the UFC seems to glaze them for whatever reason. And also, if you guys didn't know, so Ilia Topuria's brother was fighting on UFC 312 in Australia. Well, his opponent pulled out, and now a guy who's in Volk's camp took the fight on short notice against Ilia Topuria, Alexandre Topuria's brother. So Volk's going to be in his corner. So we get the Temu version of Ilia Topuria versus Volkanovski. Ilia Topuria is going to be corner his brother in the fight, and then Alexander Volkanovski is going to be cornering his new opponent, and his new opponent's looking to get a revenge for Volk, and he wants to finish Alexandre Topuria, which Ilia Topuria's brother's coming in on a lot of hype. Topuria says he's better than him. Marab says that Alexandre Topuria is really good and better than him, so we'll see. Sounds like a lot of glazing, but let's see if Ilia Topuria's brother can live up to the hype and make a successful UFC debut at UFC 312. Either way, I'm excited for UFC 313 and 314. They're shaping up to be absolute bangers. Let's get on to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is Brandon Moreno versus Steve Erceg in the works for UFC Mexico City on March 29th to headline it. Now, this is weird matchmaking because Steve Erceg coming off a knockout loss to Kai Kara-France, right? And then you give him a matchup against, like, arguably a number one contender matchup against Brandon Moreno. I mean, I know that Brandon Royval versus, what's his name, Manel Kopp will probably get the next title shot, but Steve Erceg doesn't deserve to fight number 2 in the division. He's number 8 coming off a knockout loss. Steve Erceg should be fighting like a Kai Asakura or like a Tagir Olimbekov. He should be fighting down the rankings, not up. He just got KO'd. He should have like a bounce back fight, but he apparently is going to be getting in there versus Brandon Moreno. I believe Steve Erceg was originally scheduled to face, I forgot the guy's name, but he was scheduled to face another guy, and the guy got out. So now they're working on him versus Brandon Moreno in Mexico City. Listen, Brandon Moreno looked rejuvenated against Amir Albazi. He looked like a world beater. So I am going to be picking Brandon Moreno to box up and piece up Steve Erceg to probably like a 49-46 decision. I think Brandon Moreno is a way better boxer. Overall, just a better, more well-rounded striker. And even if it goes to the ground, Brandon Moreno has some of the best scrambles in the division. So yeah, give me the assassin, baby, all day in this matchup. But weird matchmaking by the UFC. Give Steve Erceg number 2 after he's coming off a knockout loss to Kai Kara-France. Very weird. Like, what is Steve Erceg doing to get these matchups? He got a title shot when he was number 9, and now he's getting a number 2 matchup whenever he's number 8. Steve Erceg is got some going on about Dana White, dude. Who knows? Either way, I'm excited for this matchup. I think also on the Mexico City card, you got Joe Pyfer versus Kelvin Gastelum, so that'll be an interesting fight. The Salty Man versus the Cringe Lord. Kelvin Gastelum's like a big, like a full-size version of Henry Cejudo, if you really look at it, which is hilarious. Either way, this is in the works, so let's see if this happens. Let's get on to the next one, which is Jim Miller versus Chase Hooper. I thought about doing a video, actually, recently about like the oldest, the biggest unk in every division versus the youngest buck And I thought this is hilarious because this literally plays into that exact factor. Jim Miller might be the oldest active lightweight at 41, and Chase Hooper, I think, is 25. And look at this, dude. Jim Miller literally looks like he can be Chase Hooper's grandpa. But the real question is, people forget, man, Jim Miller's a great finisher. If you guys check Jim Miller's Tapology, if I'm not mistaken, he's finished his last 10 wins. Now, I know he's not fighting the highest of competition, but the fact that Jim Miller is in his 40s and he's still finishing guys is insanely impressive. Chase Hooper is looking more improved these days. He just like ran through another legend in Clay Guida. The question is, can Chase Hooper do this to Jim Miller? Chase Hooper, still young in his career. He did get fraud checked by Steve Garcia, but ever since then, he seems to be on a run, coming into his own. And I've even predicted that maybe one day Chase Hooper can get the top 5. A lot of people say that's ridiculous. Chase Hooper's a bit overrated. And I don't know, man. Now that this match has been made, I don't know if Chase Hooper can get past the old head and Jim Miller, man. Jim Miller is just so good. Like, he's one of those guys that, like, when it comes to, like, the level of competition of Chase Hooper and, like, those young up-and-comers, he can win those fights. He got a knockout in 26 seconds a couple years ago. I know he got 30-26 by Bobby Green, but this is actually an interesting matchup. The age difference between these guys is like 16 years, which is crazy. We got the grandpa versus Ben Askren's son, 3/14 in April. I don't know if this is going to be on the main card, but this is a great matchup. A real good test for Chase Hooper to see where he's at in his career. Listen, if he goes out there and destroys Jim Miller, I know it's Jim Miller, but like, it's a good look, man. Not everybody destroys Jim Miller. Jim Miller wins a lot of his fights. He only loses to like that's here in the lightweight rankings that are like right outside the rankings, like a Bobby Green, you know? Those are the kind of guys that beat Jim Miller. But let's see if Chase Hooper can pass the Jim Miller test. And if he does, man, who knows? Maybe he'll be looking to fight up closer to the rankings against like a Joel Alvarez or against like a Nacho Bahamondes or a Grant Dawson. Who knows what's in the future for Chase Hooper? But yeah, this fight announced for UFC 314 in April. Super excited for this one. Also, I believe that Kevin Holland versus Gunnar Nelson is announced for UFC London. Kevin Holland looking to get right back in there after getting submitted by Rainer de Ritter versus Gunnar Nelson. So does that mean that Kevin Holland's going to be fighting at 170? Because I know Gunnar Nelson's a welterweight. I think that if Kevin Holland wants any chance to save his UFC career, he needs to, I know he claims he doesn't care, but deep down he does. He 100% needs to fight at welterweight so he can not be at a complete size disadvantage and just get wrestle humped and submitted in every single fight. But Kevin Holland's just a big bag of coke, so we'll see. Let's get on to the next thing I wanted to talk about, guys, which is the end of an absolute era. And this is one of the saddest things. I know he's on an 8-fight losing streak, but Tony Ferguson getting cut from the UFC, man. I know we knew it was bound to happen. We saw the announcement that he signed with the GFL a few days ago, but to see it like on the roster watch and show he got cut is, man, it's heartbreaking. Tony Ferguson, one of the biggest legends in the UFC in terms of lightweight, a 12-fight win streak, claimed the interim title, but never could become undisputed champion due to politics with the fight with Khabib falling through, due to Conor McGregor holding up the division. Tony Ferguson arguably should have been the undisputed champion at one point whenever they stripped Conor, but they did the title fight between Al Iaquinta and Khabib for the title. So respect to Tony Ferguson. I wish he would have retired earlier than stayed fighting, but hey, man, if he does go to the GFL, let's hope he can get matched up against another Unk and he can get a win. So yeah, Tony Ferguson, the end of an era, 40 years old, dropped from the UFC on an 8-fight losing streak. I mean, it was the right thing to do, but it's surreal to actually see, like, on paper, you know. Anthony Smith will tell you on paper this is crazy. Either way, Chris Weidman also removed. This is also no surprise. Chris Weidman recently announced his retirement from the UFC. The way he worded it was very interesting. He said that I'm retiring from the UFC, which tells me that Chris Weidman is going to make his way to the Grandpa Fighting League, also in the GFL. Imagine Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold 2 in the GFL, a fight that was supposed to happen ages ago. I would love to see that, honestly. But either way, Alexander Gustafsson, another fighter removed. I didn't even know he was still signed to the UFC roster. I know he hasn't fought in some years, but this is no surprise. I mean, this one's not as sad because he's not really fighting anymore, and he's like 38, clearly way out of his prime. But we saw Tony Ferguson fight recently, and I don't know, man. Tony Ferguson's always going to have that soft spot in my heart. But guys, what about the GFL? They're got a lot of big names on there, and a big question a lot of my friends keep bringing up is how are they going to pay these fighters? Because, like, we're talking about guys like Tyron Woodley, Tony Ferguson, Chris Weidman, Gustafsson, like so many big names, Rockhold, Dylan Dennis, like a lot of guys that are going to, like, want a lot of money. Like, where is the GFL, if they're actually going to put together these fights, going to get the money to pay these fighters? Who knows? It's definitely an interesting topic, but I don't know, guys. We're going to see what happens with the GFL. I will 100% watch some unks throw down in the GFL. Better believe it. But let me know what you guys think of these 3 legends getting removed. It's the end of an era. Sad to see. Half the lightweight division is like over 35 at this point. Charles Oliveira is 35, Dustin Poirier is 36, Justin Gaethje's 36, Michael Chandler's 38, Beneil Dariush is 35, Moreno's 35. It's like literally half the lightweight division is probably going to retire in the next year or two, and we're going to see a complete changing of the guard at lightweight. So, yeah, man, this is surreal to see. Let's get on to the next thing in the video, which is going to be Conor McGregor beefing with Paul Hughes. If you guys remember, after Paul Hughes fought Usman Nurmagomedov on the PFL card, it was a really good scrap, and he paid respect to Khabib and his team and pretty much said that he respects Dagestan, and then Khabib invited him to go train over there, and he said he would love to. Well, Conor McGregor took hate towards that. He didn't like that Paul Hughes was showing respect to the Dagestanis, because the Dagestanis, you know, according to Conor, just continuously disrespect Ireland, which to some degree is true, but he told Paul Hughes to get that flag off. You little know what you are from up there. Conor McGregor with the weird wording, but yeah, he pretty much is throwing some shots at Paul Hughes for showing respect to Dagestan, and he said, always said you were the GOAT, paid homage at every opportunity, but coming at my Irish identity just shows where your head is at. And I'm going to have to side with Paul Hughes on this one. Conor McGregor is basically like shunning Paul Hughes, saying he's not Irish and all this crap. Dude, Paul Hughes clapped back and said that Conor McGregor was an R word, which was insane. And hey, he has every right to say that. He's been convicted in court. It wasn't like 100% found liable, but come on, dude. Either way, this was very interesting. They kind of went back and forth on Twitter. I didn't see the whole exchange. I might go back and read it. But yeah, tell me what you guys think about Conor McGregor coming for Paul Hughes' head, telling him he's not Irish and that he's an absolute embarrassment for showing respect to those guys. But you know what, man? Martial arts is all about respect, and Conor McGregor's been on a bunch of the booger sugar lately, so it's no surprise he's going to be beefing with literally everybody. Look at him at the BKFC press conference. He's coked out of his mind. But yeah, I thought this was an interesting exchange between these two Irish guys. Yeah, man. I cannot say I blame Paul Hughes for not wanting to associate himself with McGregor. Yes, McGregor's an absolute legend of Irish MMA. He's the biggest UFC star we've ever seen from such a small country like Ireland, but McGregor's just not that same guy. And as much as he's dragged his name through the mud legally recently, I cannot blame Paul Hughes for not wanting to be associated with that. Let's get on to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which was the UFC 312 main card. This is an absolute embarrassment. I know I talked about this in a recent video, but the UFC should be an absolute shame of themselves for making this a card. I mean, I don't know what other way to put this. This is arguably the worst main card in like the last 2 to 3 years in the UFC. Correct me if I'm wrong, but outside of the co-main and main, dude, who's Talashin Teixeira? Can somebody tell me? Enlighten me. Make me a non-casual in the comments, please. Jimmy Crute on the freaking main card, dude. Dude, Jimmy Crute, dude. The Australian assassin. Jimmy Crute on the main card of UFC 312, man. Wow, dude. Jake Matthews, man. The biggest journeyman in Australia, dude. Versus Francisco Prado, dude. Oh, my God. UFC 312 is an absolute embarrassment. The most exciting thing is Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis' press conference, and this is interesting. Apparently, Alex Pereira is going to be cornering Sean Strickland for his title fight with Dricus du Plessis. But besides that, man, this is such an embarrassment. And there is speculation, and this could be heavily true. A lot of guys don't want to go to Australia to fight. According to my sources and the people I hear behind the scenes, the Australian government takes around 47% of your pay in taxes if you're a UFC fighter that's not Australian. I don't know how true this is. Sean Strickland will probably be complaining about this, but if that's true, man, can you really blame high-level fighters not wanting to go to Australia to get half their money taken in taxes? That is absolutely insane. And then on top of that, they're going to have to pay the Australian tax and then turn around and come home and pay the U.S. tax. I don't know how that works if you fight into the country, if you have to pay taxes in that money when you come back to the U.S., but that would be absolutely insane. And it would make a lot of sense on why this car has such little name value. Why would you want to travel across the world to have half your money taken if you win? So if that is the truth, it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, man, there's no defending this card. This card's absolutely terrible. Like, what else is there to say about it? Who in their right mind would like want to stream this entire card and watch it with their fans? I would, because I'm still going to stream this card because I'm a diehard fan and I cannot stand how much I love the UFC, because I'm still going to watch the early prelims all the way to the main event, and I'm going to suffer and I'm going to be very sleepy on stream, dude. I might even fall asleep on the WMMA fights. Who knows? I mean, they're trying to brand Tatiana Suarez as the female Khabib in this co-main event just to make it look better than it is, but come on, man. This fight is an absolute embarrassment to the Australian fans. It's an embarrassment to the UFC fans, and it's the embarrassment to the UFC. I really hope whenever the UFC's ESPN deal is up in June, that whenever they sign with their new partner, whoever that may be, they make it a point to try to put on absolutely stacked cards for us to prove a point to the new platform that they can like sell pay-per-views more, because it seems like the UFC has become complacent with the ESPN deal. And don't get me wrong, we've had great pay-per-views. 311 was a pretty great pay-per-view, but it just feels like the UFC and Dana White don't care as much as they used to about putting on like absolutely insane fight cards. We get a lot of like very mid-tier fights. It's like we have some Apex cards where there's not a single ranked fighter on the card outside the main event. It's like, dude, that's just an embarrassment. I understand that not every single card is going to be stacked top to bottom with bangers, but they can 100% do better than this. And every time I look at the Australia card, I absolutely cringe. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. This is the video, guys. UFC news and announcements of fights coming up. UFC 314 looking to potentially shape up to be an absolute banger of a card. 313, we finally gets Pereira versus Ankalaev. So, yeah, I'm so excited. As a fan of the sport, we're going to be chucking through and looking forward to all these fights. So, yeah, I appreciate you guys watching. Let me know what you guys think of these matchups and these news. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Drop a comment for me. Do all that good stuff. Become a member of the channel. Further support me. Join the Discord in the description. I'm out, guys, and peace.